ready to get started. Are you ready to talk about your book, Catherine?
I'm ready.
Okay, so I love all of your books. I actually went and grabbed a stack of them because I have been a fan of yours for
Oh,
years, but I really love your Cold War stories. And that's definitely where the English masterpiece falls. But
yeah.
every story starts with that spark. It starts with that what if. Can you share with everyone who's here, and there's like 180 now, can you share what that specific moment, image, or idea that sparked the English masterpiece?
Well, that's an interesting one. Okay. So I have spent my previous three books to this writing World War II and Cold War spy novels. And I love writing those. And I put that in a little bit in our on our Facebook page. And I loved writing those. I love the suspense. I love the tension. I loved actually the perspective, the idea of what's truth and what's not truth. What is subjective? What is objective? What are you willing to sacrifice for? There are so many questions that those bring up. But I wanted to do something lighter. I love how art can pull out character. I love how art can touch us at such a deep level. It reveals things about ourselves that we may not even be aware of. And so I started thinking about more of a caper. And at that time, I was told a friend about, okay, I'm going to write an art caper. And she goes, oh, you mean like How to Steal a Million by Audrey Hepburn, that movie from 1963. I'd never seen the movie. And so once I saw the movie, I was like, why, yes, I am. And it's going to be a little lighter and a little fun, but it still has all those stakes and all that drama that I really enjoyed in the spy novels. So there you go.
I I love that. And you and I both are like passionate about art and that whole world. And it does allow you, because your prior couple of books had really been deeply into World War II and the Cold War. And those topics are so important. They're very much like embedded in reality and in everything that happened, an important part of our history. But then you've got this caper. And so it feels like it's going to be light, it's going to be easy, it's going to be fresh. But every book has that problem child moment or scene where you're like, this was supposed to be fun. It was supposed to be like just a
Isn't that
breeze.
every book has that moment?
And
I'm
so,
wrestling one problem child in edits
yeah,
right now.
oh, so what was it for the English masterpiece? What was that moment where you were just like, this was the worst idea I've ever had. I should have never tackled this. It is not Audrey Hepburn come to life.
But okay, so here's the thing. I'm going to be honest with you. I knew it never could be Audrey Hepburn come to life because I'm not that whimsical. I'm going to be honest. And that's probably about halfway through the writing. I'm like, you have no whimsy in you. So I always knew I was never going to master that moment. So there are some light moments in it. But I think about halfway through the book, I love Lily's acumen, her questioning, her ambition, but she wasn't coming together tightly enough. And the odd thing is, when my editor said, hey, in the first round of edits, we need to really rein her in. And here's a crazy moment. All of a sudden, I had this lightning stroke. She needs to be 1 year older. I have no idea why making Lily 1 year older solved all my problems, but it did. It grounded her. And all of a sudden, everything became clear and she had more ownership within her story. So there you go. Crisis moment was averted.
And I still smile at the idea that making her 1 year older
It
did that.
solved everything for me. Yeah. Isn't it
I'm gonna have
crazy?
to, yeah, because I'm gonna have to remember that the next time I have a problem character and be like, we're gonna make you 1 year older or 1 year
And
younger and
see
see if
how you
that solves
handle
it.
all of these issues with a tiny bit more maturity. You know?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, because it definitely worked. It definitely worked with Lily. So this book is set not that long ago. It
Oh,
is a while ago, but not that long ago. And it's set in the art world and museums. So, was there something where you really had to go and do like this research deep dive where you're like, there's
yes.
historical details, a specific career, something that was just so fascinating that you had to learn, and then you couldn't put it in the book, but now you can tell all of us about it?
You know what? I'll be honest with you. I liken research to an iceberg. I need to know the entire iceberg, but there's only about 10% of an iceberg that's above the ocean's surface. And if that 10% is in that book, then you're going to believe the 90%, or you're going to believe the 10% because I've got the 90% holding it up. So there's a lot that's not in the book, but I'll tell you a few highlights, or just about me and my writing. If I can give you a fact over a fiction, I absolutely will. It's more fascinating.
Mhm.
So, for instance, I spent a lot of time in the Tate Gallery archives, which is now Tate Britain, to learn exactly what that museum looked like in 1973. I looked up every exhibit at that museum at that time. So, when I say that Klaus Oldenburg's drainpipe blue fell on the floor and they were scandalized, it's because it really did. In 1928, when the Thames was flooded into the basement of the Tate, there were workers actually shaking out William Turner drawings, not knowing that they were priceless drawings before a curator came down and just flipped out and grabbed all the drawings. It's
Oh my
extraordinary. I know. I know.
I'm like
I think
hyperventilating for the curator.
I know. I think the most interesting thing, I spent a morning with the chairman of the Art and Species Group of the Howden Group, which is one of the Lloyd's Syndicate insurance companies, and learning about insurance in 1973 for art. And the reason why that was interesting is how you insure something says how
Mhm.
you value it, how you
Yeah.
think about it. And art was not in the world of insurance and valuations then what it is now. So I had to really go back and say, why would someone insure something like this? Who would insure it? What kind of scandal would it cause? So it was really the research all around was amazing. And
So,
I got to go to London to do it. So
which
that
is in and of itself worth it right there. And the Tate Modern is such a fascinating museum. And then you've got it's just the whole Tate system. But I just saw a question flash by that is so perfect for right now. I'm going to go ahead and ask it now. So the Pierre Sprodson
oh,
reference that you have in there of his early career,
okay.
is
It
that
had to
accurate?
go in. It's totally accurate.
I
Okay,
knew it would be.
here's the thing. The Thomas Crown Affair, I love that Son of Man. That's the what do you,
Yeah,
they're
with the
portraying
apple.
the bowler hats and the apple, etc., and they're walking around. I always wanted something like that. Then when I was doing the research, I thought, ooh, Mondrian with all those lines. That's sort of because Thomas Crown Affair was 1999, but that would help. And then I discovered that my school, St. Martin's School of Art, which was the most famous art school of that time, was across the street from theater, and that for that year, Pierce Brosnan was a student. He was a student at St. Martin's School of Art. And then I was like, he's got to be in the story because I'm using the scene from his movie. He actually was there. She could know him. And so it just was fun to make up that play where he made up that scene because then you can almost imagine years later he came back to it again for the movie. But yes, he was a student at St. Martin's School of Art. And I've never done that before, put somebody in that sort of a cameo, really a terrible nod to someone famous, but it was so much fun.
And that is part of the fun of being a novelist is you can take
It's,
those things and be like, okay, every once in a while, I want to do that.
yeah.
So, you know, when you're thinking about all of this, there's the faith and the theme elements of a book.
Mhm.
And so when you're thinking about the heart of the story,
Yeah.
what was it for the English masterpiece? Especially when we're talking about Christian fiction, readers are often looking for that deeper
Yeah.
layer, that deeper meaning, that deeper thread. So, what was like the core spiritual or emotional theme for you?
For me, it was identity. And I'll be honest, there are a lot of my books, and Cara held up a few, say, Dear Mr. Knightley has many more sort of very overt Christian themes. The Printed Letter Bookshop, Shadow in Moscow.
Mhm.
But for this one, it was about identity, and it was about posing the question, whose masterpiece are you? Who defines you? So the title is both about the work of art, which, by the way, is an English masterpiece because it's not Picasso's. It was not painted in Spain. It was painted in London. But it's also about Diana. It's also about Lily. It's also posing the question to us. What do we believe in? What are we willing to sacrifice for? And who defines us? Um, Not every book do I feel compelled to answer those questions. In fact, more often than not, I am more comfortable posing them, giving that little sort of shining see-through light that answers the questions and invites more pondering. So that is where the English Masteries, both the title and the sort of see through my meta themes came with this.
I love that. Now, as you're thinking about theme
Mhm.
and like the heart of the story, often that is like subsumed by characters, as you were talking about, like
Yes.
Lily and Diana and things like that. But this book is filled with characters. You've got fantastic lead characters, but then there's like a whole host of great secondary characters as well. But was there a character in the book that just surprised you, where you were surprised by a decision they made or the way that they grew or something that they did that you were like, wait a second, I'm the author here. You can't do that. And they just went, no, I'm doing it anyway.
So I learned a long time ago that you never can say, I'm the author, you can't do that, because they do just do it anyway. I
Yeah.
learned that in my very first book with a little boy named Kyle. I was like, you're stealing the show. And he did. But anyway, so for this one, there were a few. Number one, the mom, Gladys. I did not expect her to come to that, that front walk and say, how dare you, so many times, and what she was really getting at, and her own sort of feeling of guilt for allowing them to get to that moment. So that was something new to me. Also, to be honest, Diana at the very end. Now, I'm hoping you've read the book. If you haven't, I'm about to give a spoiler. But I got to that final scene and it was going to end a different way. And then all of a sudden, I'm writing the scene and Connor sits back on his heels and he smiles. I'm like, why are you smiling? You can't smile. This is a death moment. And I was like, oh, it's not a death moment, is it? Um, and so it changed everything. And really, it changes Diana's character. It changes everything about her, that and the choices she now has to make. They aren't made for her anymore. So it was really an interesting moment, and Connor made that happen.
Yeah. I love that. And a lot of comments in the are coming up of we love Diana and she was surprising and she
Diana.
was in so many different ways. So the
Mm.
casting call is always kind of fun to think about with a book
Ooh.
because we spend so much time with our plot and our characters and all this. And like when I'm writing a book, I tend to think of like a general outline of the character, but I think as a reader, it's kind of
Yeah.
fun to imagine what the characters look like. And yeah, I know other writers where they're like, nope, this is exactly who that person is. And so if this book were going to be turned into the next
Um,
great
you know what?
movie, how would you cast it?
That's so funny. See, I don't work that way. I've never done that. And I've not thought about it for this book. But as you were asking that question, because I knew you were going, I would say, and I think her name is Diane Kruger.
Yeah.
Diane Kruger from, she was the curator in National Treasure years ago. I think she'd be a great Diana. Maybe. I don't
Yeah.
even know who she is. I don't know. And as for Lily, oh my goodness, I don't know. Wow.
Yeah. I struggle with that question because I
It's a hard
generally think
question.
I
Yeah.
think in generalities, and other people are like, nope, it's this, 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 and this. And
I think very specifically, but it's a creation of mine. It's not anybody real. But I can tell you exactly what Lily looks like. But do I find somebody in the world exactly like her? No. Um, Interesting. Yeah.
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 So I guess if it gets turned into a movie, you'll be to the casting
I'll
person.
be
You're like,
surprised.
I'd love to know who you think this person should be.
Exactly.
So, all right. So authors often will tuck a little bit of themselves into a person. It's always
Mm.
kind of fun for me when my friends will be like, oh, this bit of this character made me think of you. And sometimes I'm surprised. I'm like, I don't know why you thought that. And then just like, oh yeah, she's got the Wonder Woman Lego keychain. That was totally something I threw in there. Is there a hobby, a favorite food, or like a personality trait that belongs to your characters that might be a direct reflection of you?
I honestly, I'm really digging here. I could look back at other characters and I could say yes, but for Lily, I'm not entirely sure. Um, hmm. I love art. I have no background in it. I'm not an artist. I don't play one on TV. But um, gosh, I don't know. That's a tough one. I love London. I lived there for a few years. So that, oh,
Okay, now I'm
here's
jealous.
something kind of fun. Okay. So Lily lives on Peel Street. She lives in a government scheme sort of apartment building. that was built in the 1800s because that area of Kensington's uber wealthy. Um, they needed workers, so they had a government subsidized building, and it still is to this day. I used to
Yeah.
live on Peel Street when I lived in London. So I lived at
Ah,
number 5 Peel Street, and she lives, so I gave her my street.
I
So
love
that is,
that. Well,
gave her
and
my street.
Kensington is beautiful.
It is
When
beautiful.
when
So
I
that,
taught study abroad, we were in Kensington, and so I probably
yeah,
walked right by where Lily
yeah.
and
So,
you lived.
so there's that. But I'm trying to think if she has any quirks of mine, or I will say that when people read my books, they will say, people who know me, they will say, I hear you. I hear
Yes.
you in the cadence of the language you use. They
Yep.
always hear me.
I always do that with like everybody who's part of this group, any of your books. I'm like, oh, yep, I
Yes,
can hear your
I
voices.
hear you.
As
Yep.
it's like you're narrating it as I read the books, which is so fun. And that's always like a treat when it's one of my friends and their books. I'm like, oh, it's like Colleen just sat down next to me, or Catherine, or Becky, or Deb, or whoever. I'm like, oh, my friends are reading the book to me. So that is fun. And I think the more books we write, the harder it is for the characters to have something that's from us because there's so many of them now. There's
There's so
only so
many of
much of
them.
me. There's
That's
only
so
so
true.
much of me.
Not so
Thank
much.
God. Can you imagine? There'd be nothing left by now. Okay, so looking forward,
Mhm.
readers, if they haven't finished it, they're gonna like immediately dash to this. And there are so many comments right now coming in about, I love London, I love London, I love London.
Ooh, then read The London House.
Oh my gosh, read The London House. Oh, and then you've got to read the Berlin book. Oh my gosh.
Oh
Oh
yeah.
my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Berlin's one of my other favorite European cities. Um, so for the readers who are going to finish this book tonight and immediately want more, I guess we've already kind of jumped to this because we're talking about what can you tell us about you working on next and what from your earlier books should they look at? Because you've written really several different
Yeah.
genres. So let's
Yeah, I'm
start with
kind of
what's
genre hop.
next.
Okay,
But
so
that's
what's
coming in a
next
while.
is,
And then let's talk
yeah,
about what they
October.
should go back and read because they're going to be desperate to read more Katherine Reay right
Oh,
away.
absolutely. Okay, so what's
Absolutely.
coming next is the Undercover Bookshop. And that
I'm
is
so
what I
excited about this
call,
book. I'm so
it's
excited.
a little more sort of Agatha Christie. Yes, it's not a mystery. It's an open, I'm going to tell you the through line right now. It's not a mystery. The main character is obsessed with classic British novels. It takes place, mystery novels. Takes place in 1950 England in a tiny town called Great Rollright. And this young woman, this young assistant shopkeeper who solves little amateur mysteries on the side, she's 22, just coming out of World War II. She's adorable. She starts to believe that a woman in the village might be a Soviet spy. And she starts to kind of follow her and run her own amateur investigation. Well, it turns out she's right. In her village lives Ursula Kozinski Burton. And if you don't know who that is, I'm going to tell you very briefly because I'd say it in the prologue. She was the USSR's a colonel in the Red Army, top officer on UK soil, running a huge spy ring out of London in the 1940s until she escaped back to East Germany in 1950. So it's a really fun story. It's Gemma's story, but obviously Ursula, a very true, real woman, plays a role. And MI6 will not open their files on her. And so I get to play with a little fiction about what Ursula's next chapter might have been, and it might involve Gemma. So there you go. That's the
I
Undercover Bookshop.
love it. I just think this is such a fun idea. And the
It's
fact
so
that
fun. It was so fun.
there's so much ambiguity because they won't open the files,
Yeah.
I just
So
think it
some
gives you so much
scholars
freedom.
say, exactly, some scholars say she was absolutely loyal to the USSR her entire life. Other scholars say MI5 let her go because they really botched it. MI5 let her go because she was always in MI6's pocket.
Yeah, a double spy.
I know. Who knows?
Double cross.
Very
Who
fun.
knows? You
Yeah.
could have so much fun. Okay, but if they want to go to the backlist,
Go
I
back.
think London House and the
Yeah.
Berlin Letters. But you also have
Right.
lovely books like this.
My first
And
7 novels are contemporary novels. They are not historical novels. They are contemporary, really love stories. And so they are more romantic. They are contemporary stories. The Dear Mr. Knightley will always be beloved by me. The Printed Letter Bookshop, I had so much fun with. It's about 3 women in an independent bookstore. And that is the only one, and I'm going to sort of lead into a question. Somebody asked if I would write a sequel to The English Masterpiece. I'm not sure I will. I don't usually write sequels. That
yeah,
said, in the printed letter bookshop, there were two characters. My favorite character, Janet, had a daughter, has a daughter named Alyssa. And Alyssa was not nice to her mother, and it really bothered me. And so I wrote a standalone novel, a sequel of Literature and Lattes, which she just held up, because I wanted to know Janet and Alyssa's story. It's the only time I've been so bothered by a relationship I could not understand that I wrote a book to solve it. So anyway, so those two you might consider part of a duo. But
Yeah.
so yeah, those are the ones I'd go back, Printed Letter Bookshop, Dear Mr. Knightley, The London House, The Berlin Letters. Um, yeah, there you go.
That's so fun. And there's all the comments about the books of yours that people have read and how
Mhm.
much they loved them and things like that. So you guys can all jump in the comments if you want to see what other people here on the call have enjoyed of Catherine's books. I think I've read pretty much all of yours, and they're different. You kind of have two genres because
You
you
do.
have the fun covers, and then you have
I have the
the more serious covers.
serious covers.
Yes. And you can tell there's a difference. You can clearly tell which Catherine Reay kind of novel you're getting,
But they're
fun
all
or serious. So, and they're all equally good. They're just very different. So you just have to know which one you're in the mood for because they're all great. And which brings me to you. Someone had mentioned, because in a lot of your books, it's like they're like love stories to books because you reference
yes.
like 30 or 40 different books in them. And so someone had asked, do you do the same thing only with art? And I put the book down somewhere.
Oh,
Um, did you do that in here? And you kind of do,
I
but
do.
not to
You're
the
right.
same level.
This is not to the same level, but this really is. I used artists to bring out personality.
Yeah.
So there is, who do you like best? Do you like the whimsy of Chagall or Moreau, or which of, say, Picasso's five? He spanned five
Yeah.
movements. Which of his five? And the Voulard suites, the pencil that Diana likes the best. So I definitely use art as a way to bring out character, just as I use books to bring out character in many of my contemporary stories. That's true.
Yeah. Well, and the Picasso Museum in Barcelona, if you want to know more about
Yes, or the
Picasso.
one in Malaga.
I haven't
Yeah.
been to that one yet. Someday, someday. Although the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam. So cool. All right,
Yeah.
last question before we open it up for everybody else's. How can readers stay informed about your upcoming novels? Where's the best place to stay connected to you and your books?
Okay, best place. I am all me on Instagram, which is why it's probably a very pathetic place to be, but I manage it all myself, so you're getting me. So I'm there. I actually answer every email that is sent to me. So I'm through my website, I'm there. All my books, release dates and tours, because I'm going to go on a big cross-country tour for the Undercover Bookshop that will all be posted both on Instagram and on my website. And obviously, if you sign up for my newsletter, which I would love, we all authors would, because it's our
Mhm.
most direct connection to you. I definitely won't waste your time, do a lot of giveaways, but also will keep you informed about tour dates, about, cover reveals. Hopefully one will come up for the Undercover Bookshop soon and that kind of stuff. And that you can sign up for my newsletter through my website too.
And
Yeah.
I just dropped the website in the chat for
Oh,
everybody.
thank
So,
you.
all right. So now we're going to open it up for you to answer those questions that were sent in
Yes.
early. So,
Okay. So I had why is Diana third person? And part of that, and I'll say briefly, I experimented that earlier in the printed letter bookshop. And it is about relevancy. It's about ownership. It's about owning your voice, owning your story. In the printed letter bookshop, Claire begins third person. And halfway through the book, there is a moment, and it's to help her daughter. She realizes she has to wake up. She has to step back into her life. And her POV immediately changes to first person. And I loved playing with that immediacy to character. That is why in this story, you never leave Diana's third person perspective. She does not claim ownership for her voice or her identity. And so she remains in third person. It was to create distance, both between herself and what she believes about herself, but also the reader. We really don't get direct access to her. She doesn't have direct access to herself. So that is why you got
yeah.
third person there. Do I have a background in art, which also goes with how do I exercise my creativity outside of writing? which also goes with, am I an artist? I'm absolutely not an artist. Um, I'm I can barely draw a stick figure. That said, I do have some creativity in my family. My daughter is an architect and a brilliant artist. And one of the things that made me think I could write this book, I knew I could do the art history, I knew I could do the research. But when I talk to my daughter, we speak of the creative process in the same way. Now, she is all painting, art, oils, obviously architectural drawings, but we think the same. So I was like, okay, I can do this without actually being an artist. Um, how do I exercise my creativity outside writing? The closest thing I get to being creative, I guess I fly fish. And that is sort of a Zen sort of creative moment. I do love to paint, but really my happy space are those pottery stores you go to where you get a bowl
Yeah.
and I love those. So I do that, that kind of thing. But on the whole, I don't even think of myself as a creative, which we can go into the psychology of that another day.
I
Okay.
understand
So
that though.
and let's see, another question. Have I visited the Picasso museums in Spain? Yes, both in Malaga and in Barcelona. I love art. I didn't really take any art classes in college or anything, but I've always been an avid sort of pursuer of the history of art and really did a deep dive in this book. Picasso is not one of my favorite artists, but he was perfect for this book for a few reasons. Number one, his death was a pivotal moment in the art world. The first iconic, world renowned in his lifetime blockbuster deal had died. He was the first artist that um, had that renown. Not only that, real quick aside, the word blockbuster came about in 1942. It was a bomb, a 12,000-pound bomb that the British had that, when dropped, would destroy a block. So it was called a blockbuster. The Picasso exhibit at the Tate Gallery in 1960 was the first time that word came out of military lexicon and entered the cultural lexicon, which just made it perfect that I was talking about Picasso. Also, he was and remains the most forged artist in history. So he just was perfect for so many reasons. Um, I think I have now answered. Oh, why no Christian references? That was one question, but I do think I answered that a little earlier, Cara, in one of your questions, which was simply, while I pray every day about my writing, God sometimes says, you need to pose some questions, or it has to be organic to the character. This character isn't ready for that. Let's pose these questions. Let's dig into these themes. Or, as I would say in, say, Dear Mr. Knightley, there's more an overt moment. But it is something that is always on my heart. It just gets expressed in different ways
Yeah,
to the.
I love that. And I could say it's the same when I'm writing. Some of my books have very strong Christian themes, and others it's more subtle because it has to be true to the character and to the story. And as long as we're in partnership with God, then our faith is going to come out, and it's all about,
Yeah.
drawing people to him and closer in their journey with him. All right, so at this point, we're going to turn it over to Becky and Nancy to ask the questions that have been populating in the chat. And I have been seeing them come through, but I'm so grateful they have been actually capturing those so I could stay focused on our conversation. So, ladies, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Cara.
Okay, awesome. I will ask the first question, and this came in from Audra. She
Okay.
said, what is the best art museum you've ever visited?
That's interesting. I think the most overwhelming for me was the Louvre. I had no idea how big that was. That said, actually, the most interesting might have been the Hermitage in Leningrad, which I went to in 1985 because my mother was so thoroughly convinced you had to be 18 to enter, and I was 15, and she was convinced I was going to be taken away by the KGB. It made the afternoon very interesting. But let's see, what was I going to say? Here's another fact though. Experts say when you go into any of these museums that you are looking at 20 to 40% forgery. How crazy is that? And I'm talking the Louvre down to your local museum. Um, so I think, but the Louvre, I think for me was the most overwhelmingly massive. So
Wow. Well, this is Nancy, and here's a question for you, Catherine. And this has popped up several times. How long did it take you to write the English masterpiece?
It took about a year and a half. When I start a book, I get intense. There's a little intense aspect to my personality. I dive deep, I work fast. It took me about a year and a half. And after the Berlin letters, which was faster, that almost felt slow. But I am slowing down a little now. But and it took a little bit more research. I had never really worked in the art world. I did write a novel years ago called A Portrait of Emily Price, which dealt with art a little bit, and it took place in Italy, and but I didn't have to dig into movements of art and artists, etc., and even the insurance of art and what that meant in a historical context. So the research took a bit of time before I sort of raced into the writing.
Okay, next question is from Dolly. How do you pick your character names?
Ooh, okay, so those are so fun. So character names for me have to be representative of the time, but they also have to be representative of something else. There's a reason she is Diana. Diana is the goddess of war. There's a reason her last name is it Gildan? I can't even remember right now. But anyway, like, but because she's gilded in many ways. And I wanted that to be counterbalanced with something young and growing and blooming and alive. That is why she's Lily. It is why her sister is Daisy and her mother is Gladys, having those families. And it's why that she loves the garden in the center, of their courtyard and their building. So there's a lot that goes into names. Connor Walsh. Walsh is actually one of the names of the IRA members who bombed the Old Bailey bombing in London in 1973. It took place on March 3rd. That was the first time the Troubles came to Britain, and there was a very anti-Irish sentiment at the time. So he has that conversation, with Lily's brother-in-law outside when he says, "How is it here?" Well, how is it in America? There was an incredibly tense time in Irish-British relations, which by giving him that last name, it puts him in that fray a little bit. And so his name was very specifically chosen. So yeah, the names all have bigger meanings. In fact, Wolf it's Heinrich. Heinrich was, let's see, his first name is from Heinrich Campendonck, who was the artist most copied by Wolfgang Beltracchi. And at a very oblique level, Heinrich is based on Wolfgang Beltracchi, but Heinrich Campendonck was the artist he chose and he favored the most to forge. So that's how he got his name. So there you go.
This is so fun. I love this. So Sandy wants to know if there's a list of paintings and artists mentioned throughout the book. And then there's another one that specifically Sherry asks, did you come up with the painting called Woman Laughing? So I think they kind
Yes.
of go.
Yes. Okay. So funny story about Woman Laughing. My daughter is a great artist. I commissioned her to please paint Woman Laughing. And, it's very specific about, the face and the eye and the piece. And she got the whole thing done, but she didn't put a face on it. And I was like, you coward. She quit. So Woman Laughing is imaginary. Every other painting in that book is real. But I wanted something that fit the purpose of the book. I wanted it to be a fictional painting. So there is no real woman laughing. That said, I mean, there's some pretty crazy, like Woman in a Red Armchair, if you've ever looked at, there's some pretty crazy. Head of Dora Maar, those paintings are crazy. Let's see, there is not, and the funny thing is I did that in the back of the printed letter bookshop. I listed in order all 64 books that I referenced within the story, even if it was an oblique reference that no one could catch. Like when somebody got their bloom again, if anyone recognizes where that came from. That's persuasion, by the way. Anyway, but in this book, I didn't even think to do that, and that would have been so much fun. So maybe I'll put it on my website sometime because that really would be fun. It's a good question.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
Okay, Libby would like to know, did you know much about Picasso before you started writing this book?
I didn't know a lot about Picasso. As I said, I visited prior to this book. I'd visited his museums back in 1990, back in 2006. So I obviously knew about Picasso. I did take one art history class in college. So The things I really learned about, and I knew about Picasso's women, which is really kind of fun to write about because Woman Laughing sits between Olga and Dora Maar. So who is it? So that was really fun to write Picasso's sort of emotional landscape within there. But I did not know about the movements that he spanned through necessarily. Um, I didn't know, say, that there are thousands and thousands of pieces of art of his on napkins and just how prolific he was, always creating. I didn't know about his popularity, that he really was the first artist within his lifetime that had global renown. So there's a lot I learned that I didn't know. I only knew the ideal little pieces that made him perfect for the story when I began the story.
So this one might be another add-on for your readers.
Mhm.
This gal, Jillian, says, did you consider doing a flash forward to present day as an epilogue?
No. That's so interesting. I didn't. I didn't. The art world is so different now. It was really fun to end it there at this cusp when art was changing. Art changed in the 1980s, actually. That is a big dividing line. And when I say it changed, it's because in the 1970s, we were in a global depression, which made this also an interesting time to write about. In the 1980s, when money flooded back into the markets, that's when art valuation went up because people needed places to park all of this new money. And so the art world is so different now. Now, that said, when this book came out, it was right, I think the Louvre heist was a little bit after this. And it was so interesting to think about art today, the black market today, forgery today, but I didn't think about putting a today within the story. I did have, that said, A Shadow in Moscow is a story about two spies, and it spans from 1955 to 1985. And yet, to your point, I did put a today epilogue because it was so much fun to look back over those 80, from 85 to 2023 and say what had happened and what did that mean. So there's just a short epilogue from today, which really kind of ties the story together in a fun way.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, Sandy asked, is there a list of paintings and artists that you mentioned throughout the book?
Oh no, but I thought I might put one on my website. I don't have one. I didn't think to do that for this, and it really would have been fun. It would have been a lot of fun. Yeah, something to do.
So, Catherine, here's more of a housekeeping. There was a couple people that got to your website and have signed up for your newsletter already. Hooray. And a couple people that said they stumbled into a mailer link. So if they have trouble getting to your newsletter, what should they do? Should they email you? Should they Facebook you? What should they do?
Well, let's see. Okay, so that's so interesting. A MailerLite link. I mean, that is who handles my newsletter. So if you subscribe there, maybe it would bounce you in there. But I mean, if you have any trouble, you can always go to my website and say, contact me. If you do that right in the body, please add me to your newsletter, and I'm happy to do that for you. But I want to make sure I have your permission to do that, obviously. But hopefully that auto pop-up should take you right there.
Right.
Karen and several other readers were excited about your next book that you talked about earlier, and they're wondering, when is it releasing?
It is coming out October. Okay, is it the 5th or the 6th that it's that Tuesday? Books always release on a Tuesday,
Yep,
and
always.
it's either the 5th or the 6th, and I keep forgetting, which is really bad. But okay, you know what? I'm gonna look at the calendar app on my phone because I need to know this. Um, as marketing plans ramp up, etc., it should be like second nature to me. It is on Tuesday, the 6th of October. So very excited about that.
The only last question that I have that we haven't hit on, I think, is what is the best art museum you have ever visited?
Oh, okay. So I mentioned the most memorable, which was the Hermitage in Leningrad, obviously because my mother thought I was going to be arrested. The Louvre was the most fascinating to me because it was massive. That said, I will always adore the Met. And there are two things about the Met. Number one, I grew up adoring the Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler. I don't know if y'all have ever read that child's book, but you know, they get locked in the Met because they're camping out there and they solve a Monet mystery. It's fabulous. But also, Connor Walsh's story a little bit came from, and this is so horrible, I need to look up the name of the book, but there's a memoir of a young man whose mother always took him to the Met, and when his mother died, he became a guard at the Met. And actually, that's wrong. His brother died. It's Connor's mother who died. And I started Connor before reading this memoir, but it just fit perfectly. He became a guard at the Met after his brother died to deal with his grief. And it's about grief, it's about growth. And it obviously, because he worked in the Met for 10 years as a guard, it's about the art. And I loved that story. And if you sign up for my newsletter, I promise you, I'm going to find the title of that book and I'm going to put it in my newsletter because it's a wonderful memoir and it deserves a shout out. So there you go.
Okay, I have another question.
Mhm.
Lots of people are saying that they thoroughly enjoyed the narrators of the audiobook, and they're wondering, did you have input into selecting those narrators?
I did. Oh my goodness. Okay, so about 5 books ago, that became part of my contract that I get to choose the narrators, and I have so much fun. Um, and Saskia Marveld is one of my favorites. Yes, I've had so much fun choosing the narrators, and part of that is because they bring the story to life in such a beautiful way. They matter so much. People are constantly asking, would you ever narrate your own book? Because you know exactly how the characters should sound. No, no. I'm going to leave that to the professionals because they are spectacular, effervescent, amazing. So, yes, I do get to choose the narrators and I love it.
Okay,
That's
I have
awesome.
another
And
question.
somebody was asking about her favorite snack.
Okay.
Oh, my favorite snack? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. A chocolate? Really? Chocolate. Any type of chocolate. That says I love a good cracker and goat cheese or sheep cheese. I can't eat cow cheese. I know that's weird. Um, I'm an eater. I'm really very much an omnivore. So yeah, lots
Love
of
that.
snacks.
Okay, Audra would like to know about the tragedy in Lily's life early on. She
Hmm.
said, "Why did you decide to include that in the story?"
Hmm. I think often what makes us adults, it can be a big deal or it can be a subtle deal. And this was a defining moment for Lily. And I think it's important for all of us to recognize that the things that influence us today, how we react, who we are, they may not have happened yesterday. They may have been out of our control. And we have to reconcile ourselves with that too. And so there is amount of, with those kinds of events, there is subjectivity. Because if you think about it, Lily's experience of that moment was very different than Daisy's, but yet it impacted them both. And so it was important for them to kind of figure out what that meant. It impacted the whole family. Well, what did that mean for Gladys? You know, when she said that, how dare you moment, it was, my life is so rich in this wheelchair. I see things I never would have noticed before, but that's a perspective. So I do think I very definitely included it, and you'll find that in a lot of books. And in the Berlin letters, I actually included a trauma of the grandmothers, just obliquely, but it's very clear what happened to her because what happened to her changed how she raised her daughter, and when her daughter died, it changed how she raised her granddaughter. So that is part of why you get that moment. And because it's such an alive thing that is happening within this family and it's changing, how Lily, who never comes to Daisy for help, and at the very end, she's like, I need you, help me. It's this reconciling moment, but you gotta kind of need to know what broke them to what brings them back together. So that's why it's there. Anything else?
Nancy, do you have another question? If not, I have a few more.
Go ahead, Becky. It's all you.
Okay. Christy asked, "What book did you read that made you want to be an author?"
Wow, so many. I was an avid reader.
Yeah.
It probably was, and I don't even know who read it. Did any of y'all, when you were young, read The Great Brain or Encyclopedia Brown? I'm huge on those. Yeah, Great Brain, Encyclopedia Brown, Tales of Fourth Grade Nothing. Those are all my young years books. The High King, or anything Lloyd Alexander wrote. The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, I read very young. I read Jane Austen starting at 13. So all of Narnia when I was very young. So there's definitely a fantasy bent to my personality and my reading. But I was an avid reader, always an avid reader. Writing, though, for me took a little longer. I actually have a master's in marketing and worked in the marketing world for years until an injury sidelined me and God put a story on my heart, and that was Dear Mr. Knightley. And when Dear Mr. Knightley sold, it sold as a multi-book contract. So all of a sudden, I had this new career that I had no idea what to do with. Because when you write that first novel, you don't really expect it to go anywhere. Like for it to go somewhere is quite extraordinary. And so all of a sudden, I had to know how to do the job for real. And that was Lizzie and Jane came next. But yeah, so a lot of reading, now a lot of writing, and it's just an incredible ride, shall we say. Yeah.
All right, I think we have time for one more question, if we
Okay.
have one.
Yes, Denise would like to know, how much do you know about your story before you start writing?
Okay. So every story has the final moment. So for the English masterpiece, it didn't end, as I told you, it didn't end as I thought. But I had the moment with Heinrich and Lily and Diana and Connor in that attic. And it didn't end at all, but I always have that moment. That's actually where a story always begins with me. For the next book, it's a showdown between Gemma and Ursula. Um, and then I have to back up and say, how am I going to get to that moment? I start the story with knowing then the beginning and maybe kind of a twist or two in the middle, and then obviously that moment. And then I liken my writing process to running the tide up a beach. I will start at the very beginning and I will go as far as I can, plotting as I go, and then I will go back and I will run it up again. And I will keep doing that while plotting until I get to the end. And that means that the front matter of my novel, it might have 12, 15 passes, whereas the last matter of the novel might only have 3 or 4 by the time I get to the end and it gets off to my editor. So there you go.
Awesome.
I always think it's fascinating how everybody writes so
All so
differently.
different. I know. I think you have like notebooks and every single line and plotting. Am I
I
right?
wish, I wish,
Okay. Yeah.
I wish.
You're
I've
just
done
so
that
organized.
occasionally, but yeah, no. Um, and then Colleen's always like, if I know the ending, I'm not going to write it.
Right, exactly. Whereas I know exactly, kind of that moment and how am I going to get them there. So
Yeah. So for you, it's the discovery of how am I going to get them
how am I
there?
going to get them there? How am I going to
Yeah.
get that moment where Connor actually sits back and laughs? Like, what are you doing, buddy? You can't do that.
Yeah. Oh, that's so fun. Well, thank you so much, Catherine, for spending all this time with us today. And next month, everyone, this is not the book we're talking about because it's not out yet. I don't think I have my copy yet, but it's in this series. So it's Colleen Coble, and it's the final book in the series of the Tupelo Grove series. It's fabulous. I've read it. Absolutely a wonderful conclusion to the series. And so it is When Justice Comes. And it's from the amazing USA Today bestselling author Colleen Coble and her writing partner Rick Ackert, where it's the final installment. And Hez and Savannah Webster have survived storms that would bury others without a love as strong as theirs. But can they withstand the final battle in the deadly Lagar Willard feud that threatens to sweep away everything they've fought for? And don't worry, if you haven't read the others, you'll still be just fine. But Hez Webster and his fiance stand on the brink of a new life, but their dreams are haunted by specters of the past. Just as they're getting ready to adopt her nephew, two other petitioners also file for custody, both of whom only want Simon for their own gains. He's such an adorable little boy. So, between the financial company that has outmaneuvered to save the university from ruin and the bad blood from the head of the Willard family, it's hard to say who wants them out of the way more. Hez and Savannah's quest for justice leads them through a labyrinth of family law. Don't worry, you don't get bogged down in that pesky old law stuff. Um, and where loyalties are tested and trust is a dangerous luxury. when every decision could be their last. With the clock ticking, Hez and Savannah must confront the ghosts of their past and their deepest fears to secure a future for Simon. So much good stuff to come next month. And I think you're seeing that in this group of authors, there is something for every reader. And I hope you're enjoying getting to meet lots of different authors like the amazing Katherine Reay and last month's Becky Wade and next month's Colleen Coble. But as we wrap up tonight, let's just take a moment to pray and leave with the grace of God. So, Father, I just thank you for everyone who made time tonight to join us. I just ask that you would go with us into the days ahead of us and the month before us. I ask for creativity for each author, and I ask for your grace and your peace for each reader. May all that we say be to your honor and your glory. In Jesus' name, amen. Thanks, everyone, and Godspeed and a
Thank
good night's
you.
rest.
Thank you, everyone.